Hello everyone, this is Deanna, and I am with you today to share with you week 11 in my Bible Scripture Art Journal. And the verse for today is Romans 6, verse 8. And the verse says, "Now if we have died with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him." And this is the third entry for the month of March. And this is my little bookmark with my calendar. And you can see that today is the third entry, 25th. And today is, for people that don't know, but I think most people do, today is called Good Friday. And a lot of people wonder why it's called Good Friday. It's not a typical kind of definition of the word good. And it is considered a holy day, but it's not considered a holiday in the typical sense that we think of as a holiday. Today is the day that Christ was crucified. And I wanted to share with you today in my artistic expression of this and kind of talk to you all about Good Friday. Now, going back in the last couple of weeks, in the last couple of entries that we made, we talked about how Jesus had friends and how he performed miracles and how he kind of knew that his time on this world was going to be over and his work was going to be done and culminate in this final act, this final sacrifice. And I want to flip back just really quick, and I want to show you last week was Palm Sunday, and it's a very different feeling on this page. This page is very bright, and it kind of pops out, and it's very springy, and it's very celebratory. And this is, Palm Sunday was the day that Jesus came into Jerusalem, and the people just praised him and loved him and just, adored him, and finally came to the realization that he was who he said he was. He had never been shy about claiming to be the Son of God and, perform miracles in the name of God, and just wanted to show the power of God to God's people. And so he performed one of his last miracles was raising Lazarus from the dead. And then after that, the word just kind of spread that this man must be who he says he is. And so he went into Jerusalem for the Passover, and it was just a wonderful reception that he got, and it was just a celebration. And so this was Palm Sunday, and we call it, Palm Sunday because he went in and people laid down palms for him. And then at the end of the week, how things changed, and he was turned over to, the authorities, to the Romans, and all the people that he loved kind of turned on him. Peter, his disciple, turned on him. The disciples kind of went and hid when all of this was going on. The ones that stayed with him mostly were the women, his mother and Mary, and the women that he had traveled with and that loved him. So what a difference from this beautiful celebration to this. And I wanted to convey this with something that was very black and very dark. And if you ever go to a service on Good Friday, if you ever go to church on Good Friday, you will notice that there's usually black drapes up, or it's a very kind of different service. It's not a lot of singing. There's not a lot of celebration. Everyone leaves very quietly. And because we remember how Christ was, scorned and scourged and in the end crucified. So I wanted to depict that today, and I'm sorry, my finger's all full of paint, with this very, very black. I didn't put it in the plastic today because there was a big glare, and I wanted you all to see this very clearly. So the story is Christ was scourged, he was beaten horrifically, and finally taken to Calvary. In the Bible, it's also called Golgotha, and he was crucified along with, and there's 3 crosses here. And for people that don't know, the Romans had a very efficient way of executing people. And they executed people by putting them on these crosses, and people died very slowly, but it was just an inexpensive, very efficient way for the Romans to do this. And it also sent out signals to people, because people could pass by and see these horrific images of these people on these crosses. And it was kind of a warning to people to act right, because this is what we'll do to you if you don't. So people that were crucified were usually murderers and people who had committed terrible crimes. And so Christ was put on the cross next to two thieves, basically. And, if you can imagine the Son of God in between the two thieves. And I don't know if you know the story, but one of the thieves says, well, if you're the Son of God, why don't you save yourself, and why don't you save us too? Still doubting and still in that kind of, well, if, not believing way, if you say you're this, then why don't you do this? And the other man on the cross on the other side said, don't listen to him. But when you go to your Father in heaven, when you come into your kingdom, please remember me. Like, I'm the least worthy to be remembered, but please remember me. And I get very emotional talking about it. And Christ said, yes, I will remember you, and today you'll be with me. And it was one of the last things he said. And one of the last things he said was, I'm going to take you with me, again, showing his humility and taking this lowly person who, knew that he deserved this kind of death, but Christ didn't. And he said, I'm going to take you with me. And so it was wonderful. So the verse today, again, ties in with the theme of resurrection. And it says, now if we have died with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him. And again, it's this reference to life after death, living after dying with Christ and with him forever. And that's what this man on the cross got to experience when he was next to Christ. He said, will you remember me? And he says, I'll not only remember you, I'll take you with me. And so that man is living with him, and as we all will. And so I wanted to just, show this wonderful depiction of the crosses and the sunset, because, they didn't take Christ down until what began the Sabbath, and the Sabbath, begins on Friday evening, the Shabbat, the Sabbath. So at sunset is when kind of the vigil starts in the Western Christian world, of waiting for the time when Christ will come again. And he does come again. He comes again when he is resurrected on resurrection morning on Easter Sunday. So I did this with some watercolors. I wanted to depict kind of a sunset theme here. And so I used some watercolors, and I cut out a template of the kind of the mountain with the crosses, and then did it again on some black paper. And I liked how it looked so much that I wanted to give the crosses some kind of dimension and some kind of like, make them stand out a little bit. So I actually used the template behind, and I think it gives them a little bit of weight, it gives the crosses some weight. The other thing that I want to show you is, this is my depiction kind of the crown of thorns that Christ was made to wear when he was scorned, and when he was, made fun of, and, beaten. And what a difference from the beautiful palms that he had laid down for him when he came into Jerusalem. And in the end, he had to wear this crown of thorns that was so brutally put upon him. So that was my entry for today for Good Friday. I hope that brings a little bit of clarity and understanding. It's not so much Good Friday in that it's a good day. It's the good that came from this act, the good that came from this crucifixion and from his resurrection. And the good is that we will get to live with him. And if you are not a believer, if you don't know the salvation that can come through Christ, I strongly urge you to just pray, and if you don't know how to pray, just talk to God and say, put this in my heart, come and be with me, and he will live with you and we will live with him for always. And so that is the good that comes from Good Friday. And I want to read the verse again to you. It says, now if we have died with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him. And this is Romans 6, chapter 6, verse 8. And this is week 11 of 52. And I thank you so much for being here with me on this Good Friday, on this Good Friday. And what a blessing it is to be able to remember the sacrifice that Christ made for us. And I urge you to keep that in your hearts and in your actions today. My mother used to always tell me and my sister, you know, if we were acting up, you know, especially on Holy Week, she would say, you know, remember what Christ did for you, and cut it out, basically, if we were just acting silly or dumb or fighting or being, you know, obnoxious or sarcastic or anything, you know, anything that, you know, didn't keep us in the frame of mind of what we were experiencing, you know. So I urge you to keep this in your heart. I urge you to keep this in your actions. You know, I'm not saying you have to stay on your knees all weekend, but, you know, just remember what Christ did for us. And I will see you again on my next entry. And hopefully the next entry will be on Easter Sunday morning. And it's just wonderful. I look forward to it. And I thank you so much for being with me. And I thank you for listening to me talk to you about Good Friday. And I will see you on my next video, okay? God bless you. Bye-bye.